I upload daily NBA content on this channel, so if that is something that interests you, then subscribe. Also drop a like on this video. It only takes 1 second and it makes a massive difference. So as you should all know, Chris Paul was just traded to the Phoenix Suns in exchange for Kelly Oubre. Sorry, I got distracted. No reason. A future first-round pick and some other young guys that there's not much known about them at the moment, as well as Ricky Rubio. And while there's a lot of exciting things going on with the Suns, I wanted to be the one weird guy who focuses on what this means for the Oklahoma City Thunder rather than the Suns. For just a quickie on what I think the Suns are going to do, I think they'll be competing for a playoff spot. I don't think they're guaranteed like a lot of people have been claiming them to be, but I could certainly see them being as high as the 5th seed, but I could also see them being as low as the 9th seed, but I'm probably going to put a video on that probably on Wednesday. But as of right now, I want to focus on the Thunder. So where do they stand currently, and then what of course is in store for them in the long term, and also specifically what are they getting back in this trade. So I put out a tweet where I said I could see the OKC Thunder, with how many first-round picks they already have, being more interested in getting an actual established guy back for Chris Paul, because at a certain point you can have so many first-round picks that it's like you're just going to be sitting here waiting for like 5 years, which, hey, you're going to be great after those 5 years, but it would be nice to have a couple of players now who are established to be pretty damn good. Obviously, they'd already have that with Shai Gilgeous-Alexander, and then Steven Adams is still on the roster. Don't know how long that's going to last, but he's another guy who's just an established good player. Lou Dort broke out in the playoffs this year. He can very clearly be a great defensive player, and hopefully offensively he figures out his jump shot. And then outside of that, there's Darius Bazley, who has some potential. And then now they have Kelly Oubre. Sorry. Kelly Oubre, I believe, is a pretty damn good player, although I definitely think this is a good trade for the Suns, but it's a pretty good player for the Thunder to get back because he can be a long-term forward, either small forward or power forward, and I guess it'd probably be small forward if Darius Bazley ends up being your long-term 4, but we do need to see more from him before we make that call. But Kelly Oubre is kind of a jack of all trades but master of none type, because he's a decent three-point shooter, pretty decent shot creator, pretty good in transition, pretty good defensively, pretty good dribbling, decent enough passing, and pretty good rebounding, but he's just not amazing at really anything. But he's also very solid all around, and he's certainly somebody that you can have be a long-term starter. He averaged like 18 points per game this year on decent enough efficiency. I imagine he'd average something similar to that with OKC again this year, maybe even more points on a little bit worse efficiency, just because after Shai Gilgeous, there's not a whole lot of offensive options at the moment. So I definitely think that Kelly is probably going to be the second option on this team, after being the third one last year. So I could see him averaging like 20 points per game, playing decent defense, and having like a 54% true shooting percentage or something like that, which is not going to be amazing. What does this move mean for Shai Gilgeous? Well, he fully has all the keys to the offense. Last year he had both Chris Paul and Dennis Schroeder. I guess I should talk about the Dennis Schroeder trade as well, but I'll get to that in a second. But last year he had both of those guys as other guards who were taking a lot of shots and taking a lot of possessions and dribbling a lot. This year he's going to be the lead guard, and there's a lot of development for him to be had. Offensively, I'd like to see him become a better playmaker and all that kind of stuff. Also shooting the ball, his three-point shooting has not been great. I am lower on Shai Gilgeous-Alexander than most people are, but I also think given this opportunity, he's probably going to average like 23 to even 25 points per game. The efficiency probably is not going to be great, but there's going to be plenty of shots for him, and I think in the long term that's going to be positive for his development, even if this year it might get ugly at times. I expect the Thunder to definitely not be in the playoffs, and I can honestly see them being one of the worst teams in the league, but guys like Shai Gilgeous and Kelly Oubre are going to get a lot of shots that's going to further develop them, and you're going to see more opportunity for guys like Darius Bazley and Lou Dort. And as for that Dennis Schroeder trade, I agree. I initially thought, well, is that really all you could have got for Dennis Schroeder? And realistically, no, they could have got more for Dennis. They probably could have got Dante DiVincenzo and their first-round pick, as well as a contract like, I don't know, like, what's the guy's name? Ersan Ilyasova from the Bucks and like Robin Lopez. You could have got some expiring contracts and a decent young guy and a first-round pick that was even, or I think it's about the same in the draft, but or I think it's from Indiana, so no, it's actually higher in the draft. So a better pick, an actual young player, and 2 expiring contracts from the Bucks. However, in this case, it makes sense to trade Dennis to the Lakers because it's kind of a 4D chess move where if the Lakers beat the Clippers, I should say again, but the Clippers didn't even make it to the conference finals, but if the Lakers beat the Clippers, it's very likely that Kawhi Leonard and Paul George leave the Clippers, and if that's the case, the Clippers are going to suck. And in case you forgot, the Clippers' first-round picks are almost all exclusively owed to the OKC Thunder. So, making the Lakers a better team is in the best interest of the Oklahoma City Thunder. And giving Dennis Schroeder to the Lakers obviously makes them a better team. So by doing so, you're hurting the Clippers' chances and improving your chances to have those first-round picks convey into something just fantastic. This could very well end up being like a Brooklyn Nets, Paul Pierce, Kevin Garnett type of trade where the Celtics ended up getting Jason Tatum and Jaylen Brown out of that deal, as well as like Marcus Smart and some other guys that they turned into assets. And we could see the same thing happen in OKC where they get their pair of young guys and they have a very bright future as a result. Meanwhile, the Clippers are crying from being a disaster franchise. But I do think in the end that's probably the best move that they could get for Dennis, because even if it ends up not working out that way and like the Clippers win a 2021 title, I think the chance of it just to get, you know, missing out on Dante DiVincenzo and a slightly better first round pick is worth the chance of even getting like a 5% higher chance of making the Clippers star players leave. So I think it's a worthwhile move for OKC, even if on the surface, number 28 and Danny Green is not fantastic. Outside of that, basically, they really don't have that much in terms of young players at the moment, but where OKC's future gets enticing is with their draft capital, because they have a dickload of first-round picks from both the Houston Rockets, from the Russell Westbrook trade, and from the Clippers from the Paul George trade. And both the Houston Rockets and the Clippers are looking like they're not going to be good in the next coming years, as Russell Westbrook wants out of Houston, and James Harden even likely wants out of Houston, which is something we're going to talk about in tomorrow's video. And then, and again, I just mentioned it earlier with the Clippers, Paul George and Kawhi could very well leave after this season, and a bunch of their firsts and a bunch of the Rockets' first are owed to the Thunder. So in terms of what's next for the OKC Thunder, I think it's really going to come down to the development of Shea and then some of the other young guys with Kelly, Darius Bazley, and Lou Dort in terms of their short-term future. But in the long term, there is no question that the Thunder have a very bright future. Even if both the Clippers and the Rockets end up being decent playoff teams throughout the tenure of all those picks that they have, having that many draft picks, regardless of where they land in the draft, is going to net you something nice. And it's for that reason that the Thunder have a very bright future. And I think we can really only wait and see how far it goes. But in terms of the short term, I don't think they're going to make the playoffs next year. I'm pretty confident saying that. I don't think they're going to make the playoffs even a year or two after that, unless they draft somebody who's just really good right out of the gate. And for that reason, their own first-round picks are going to have some crazy value, because they're probably not going to be a good team, and they're going to get some more lottery picks on top of the potential lottery picks that they will have from the trades that they've made earlier. So lottery picks of their own, lottery picks from maybe even 2 other teams that are really hurting in the NBA. Sam Presti deserves a whole lot of credit for, honestly, holding on to Russell Westbrook and Paul George in hindsight would have been a disaster. Like, Paul George just blessed the Thunder by asking for a trade, because doing so, he got them out of both Paul George and Russell Westbrook before their value would sour, and got them back just an absurd amount of assets. And for that reason, this team has a very bright future. I am going to be maybe delaying, if not, it's going to be out later tomorrow, my third episode of my NBA series. But I do have a series on, that's basically just a My League on the Philadelphia 76ers, where I traded Joel Embiid and got a bunch of players to surround Ben Simmons as the main player. That video, the first one is on this channel, second one is on my gaming channel, and the third one and the rest of the videos from there are going to be on that gaming channel. So go subscribe to that channel. It's at over 7K. I'd like to get it to around 10K sometime soon. So go subscribe over there. It is much appreciated. Also, if you want to support this content outside of just your like and subscription, I do have a Patreon where you can give me money in exchange for some extra content. But that is the end of this video. Please be sure to like and subscribe for more NBA content like this, and cue the outro music.